G'day everyone, welcome back to another weekly tipping video on the channel. Today I'm going to be going over my tips for round 7, or Anzac round of the 2024 AFL season. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you do go on to enjoy. And let's kick it off with my tips from last week. Rightio, my tips from round 6. 1 out of 8. One of the worst tipping weeks that I can remember for sure. Oh my goodness. A round full of 50-50s and I just could not get on the end of any of them. I got the Hawks tip right, but that was really a no-brainer to be honest. But thought the Saints would get on top of the Doggies, but how about that? The Western Bulldogs. Inconsistent side, but they were really powerful through their midfield and their high-octane forward line. Thought Adelaide, just that home field advantage would see them get over the line. That third quarter, they were able to show their nice ball movement, but again, they were just very slow, whilst Essendon, their front half game is excellent at the moment. They had a very, very resilient win. Bit of controversy at the end. Port Adelaide started like a house on fire, but the Pies brought back their DNA and just obliterated them in the second half. The Carlton, really, really good quality win too. The power of their midfield through Walsh and Cripps really did show and just stunned the Giants, I felt, in that second half. Brisbane, very inaccurate side, but the Cats played the conditions much better. And then I thought Fremantle, surely better side on paper, you'd think. West Coast, yes, coming off a win, but how about that? I mean, they are looking now like a team that you can't mess with, the West Coast Eagles. Then for the Sunday games, my pessimism kicked in as a Swans supporter, and I went against the Swannies off the bye. But yeah, really strong performance again. Turnover game was excellent, and the Hawks, the only tip I got correct out of the whole round. So now entering into Anzac round, 9 games back into it. Let's hope for a bounce back. Let's have a quick look now at my Rolls Macca tipping competition. A few people got, I think the highest one was around 7 out of 8. A lot of people got around 6 out of 8, which is, massive kudos to them because it was a very, very even round with a lot of 50-50 tips. And as for who is currently leading my tipping competition, it is Magpies FX with a total score of 62. Rightio, so now let's kick off with my tips for Anzac round, hoping for a bit more of a bounce back this week. And we start off with what looks to be a bit of a one-sided game right here. The Melbourne Demons hosting the Richmond Tigers. 96% currently have tipped the Melbourne Football Club. Tigers currently just killed with injury at the moment. It was evident against the West Coast Eagles in their loss. Just a lot of VFL quality plays, probably around half their team of best 22 plays they do have out. So, and also over 1,000 games of experience they've lost through injury. So it does go to show that injuries can really hurt a team. I've heard that potentially 𝐓𝐿𝐴 could be coming back for this game, so that would just be a massive inclusion into their midfield. Both teams are coming off the bye though, so I do expect this contest to, show a lot of sharpness between both teams. As I've always said with the Tigers, just how they go in the moment, they will struggle, but I still think they'll continue to be thorns in some good team sides, like we saw against Sydney. And it's back at the home of the MCG, so this is where Richmond do really turn up to play. I expect this game to be a bit of a cagey affair. Richmond I still see as a very competitive team. They've been a much better contested side this year, so if they're able to try and match Melbourne in the midfield, well then yeah, I think they could really control the game for maybe a quarter or two. But looking at this one on paper, it is just hard to go against the Melbourne Football Club. Very disappointing, of course, against Brisbane, but off the bye with just a lot of those veteran players like your Max Gawn, etc. I think it's the break they needed, and I reckon off the bye they'll come back and play some good football. They've been able to show strong team defence, and I think they'll regroup as a midfield and try and get on top of the Tigers. And from how they've played this year with their ability to control games so well, I expect them with just a better team and more experienced side on paper to get a hold of the Tigers here. So Melbourne will be too good for Richmond. I still will say I think this game could maybe be, back and forth a little bit in the first half, but the D's class run away with it and win by 19 points. Thursday games now, and here we are, the Anzac Day clash. Essendon versus the Collingwood Football Club at the MCG. No matter how bad or how good a team is in form when you look at both sides, these are always close games of footy, and both teams are coming off a win, looking quite good. Collingwood look to be back with bringing back their DNA. Their pressure in their front half game was absolutely brilliant. Just a very well balanced side, Collingwood. So I think every one of their 23 players will really need to get on song here, because Essendon at the moment are a team not to mess with. I have to say their pressure in their front half game as well has been absolutely brilliant. Their last 2 wins have been very impressive to watch. Their just pressure and their intensity around the football and forcing teams into repeated stoppages is a very good sight to see if you are definitely an Essendon supporter. They're having weapons in their forward half, really get clicking at the moment. Jake Stringer, I think he's kicked around 12 or 13 goals. Their midfield as well was heavily improved, looking like a top 4 midfield numbers-wise at the moment. Calder, Sam Durham, these sort of role players have really now risen up and played and now shown a huge influence to how they've gone so far. And also their ability to repel inside 50 entries the last couple of weeks has been very good too. Ben Mackay has been a rock in the air. And I think we know what to expect from the Pies too. 3 wins now on the bounce. I think now they're starting to play with a lot more confidence. So I'm expecting this one to be really close because I see positives from both teams. Could be going right down to the wire. But I really like how Essendon are going at the moment. I just think they are playing so much more of that team brand and they're getting a lot more from those role plays, their intensity, their pressure. I think that could really make this one a classic game, the Dons. And I'm going to be backing them in. I think they can finally get the monkey off the back, get that Anzac Day win over the Pies because it feels like it has been quite some time as the Pies have had the wood over Essendon. So expect this one to be close, but I just feel like Essendon in these close games and their resilience is now starting to really build as a team. And I think the league could be off if the Dons get up here. So Essendon will win a thriller by 3 points. Then for Thursday night, we have the Giants hosting the Brisbane Lions at Macca Oval. GWS picked up their first loss last week against the Blues. Not really too much shame in that. Carlton just really came to play at their playpen of marvel. But they did get exposed quite a bit in their midfield. I mean, no Stephen Coniglio, and probably their midfield depth is hurting at the moment. Tom Green hasn't been in the greatest amount of form since the bye. I think he's been honestly pretty ordinary. Hasn't really been able to show his dominance in stoppages as they are facing a Brisbane Lions side who haven't been too crush hot this season and definitely will be frustrated after their defeat against Geelong. It's hard to really gauge too much from that game given the conditions were so bad. The Cats just played those conditions much better whilst Brisbane were trying the chip mark system. Didn't really work at all in those wet conditions and they kicked very inaccurately. So I expect under a bit more of dry conditions Brisbane to play much better. We've been able to see them play some good quality footy. I still look at that Melbourne win and think they've got to be back somehow. You know, that stoppage and midfield game and their pressure was fantastic. If GWS are heading into this game with pretty much a full-strength squad, you know, Taylor is still going to be out, I've been hearing. Coniglio is still out, and they've lost Toby Green and also Jesse Hogan most likely to the MRO unless they do get off. But with those outs, I'm a bit sceptical, and I just think Brisbane, they're still playing for their season at the moment, currently sitting 2-4. I don't want to take too much from that loss last week given the conditions were so bad. So I think Brisbane will get back on the horse here and pick up a win. Those outs from the Giants are just make me question them at the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised though if GWS can really beat them with their really high quality ball movement. But Brisbane, I think they'll win this game. They have been able to knock off the Giants a couple of times at this venue too, so I reckon they'll do the same and will knock off the Giants here in, a game that could go back and forth, but Brisbane will be too good and win it by 13 points. Then for Friday night, we have Port Adelaide hosting the Saints at the Adelaide Oval. Well, both teams coming off really disappointing defeats last week. Port Adelaide were just hammered in that second half. They started like a house on fire, but just collectively as a unit, just the penny dropped for all those players. Rosie had one of his worst games in quite some time. The midfield was obliterated. And just I felt the little things with Port Adelaide, not manning up in transition. I thought defensively they were just killed by the smaller Collingwood forward line. I thought the three talls, Radigalea, 𝐓𝐻𝐿, and 𝐼𝐗 had very off days and were terrible as a collective unit. So their contest work was very uncharacteristic, but back at home I do sense a bit of a bounce back. It's a good opportunity to flex their muscles against the Saints here, who are a very hard team to gauge just with how they're going this season. They'll probably win this game against Port Adelaide, but just at home against Port, they're a very hard team to go against usually. Back at the Adelaide Oval, their contest game is very good, and still overall this season they've been one of the top forward half sides in the comp. They own the territory game, they really press teams, and I think with how the Saints like to control the game with methodical movement out of defence, Port Adelaide can really press the Saints backline and put them under a bit of strife. Not too sure if the Saints will get back Max King, but they've got to show more damage forward to centre. Their kicking skills were awful last week, so we know they're a good running team, and that can definitely, I think, outrun Port Adelaide in transition. So it's a matter of what they can do forward to centre, because there was just a lot of poor and sloppy turnovers. But for me, I think it's just a bit of a hill too far to climb for the Saints here. Can't really see them getting on top here of Port Adelaide, or who knows, with good sense of night set. But Port off the bounce, off the rebound, I think back at home, they'll flex their muscles here against the Saints and win this game well, and win it by 17 points. Saturday games now. First one up, we have North Melbourne hosting the Adelaide Crows down in Tasmania. Well, North Melbourne, definitely under the pump via the press at the moment. Staring down the barrel of currently potentially being one of the worst teams in the AFL era, with just how poorly they've played the last couple of seasons. Their loss last week against Hawthorn was just the same old, a lack of effort, a lack of intensity, inability to move it, from arc to arc, and defensively really struggling at the moment. Very young and inexperienced team too. So when will the purple patch come? Could it come here against Adelaide? Probably highly doubt it though. Adelaide, pretty gallant defeat last week against the Dons, of course. Again, questions on their ball movement. They did look awfully slow throughout time to time against the Dons. They were sweltered under that Essendon pressure too. So, hey, if North can really bring the heat, maybe for the first quarter or two, they could control this game. But in terms of the four-quarter basis, don't know how North can knock off the Crows here. So Adelaide should really be able to flex their muscles. Better team on paper. Dawson off the back of a great game, so he should lead his side to victory here, and the Crows will get a good win away from home and win this one by 28 points. Now we're looking at one of the games of the round. The Cats hosting the Blues at the MCG, first versus fourth, and this is really a season-defining game at the MCG. It's a big game for both sides. The Cats currently undefeated, and they've been playing some awesome football. Just really defensively and offensively. That's the best way to look at Geelong. I think they're one of the top defences in the competition in terms of how they set up behind the football. Defensively, very strong. They are going to be losing Tom Stewart, though, this week with concussion. So that is a massive out, and there's a chance for Carlton to really penetrate them. But when looking at the Cats in their forward 50, they're just such a smart team. They position themselves well in transition like they did against Brisbane last week. And just a very unselfish team. They pick apart targets inside 50 very nicely. They play for each other, and it's just such a well-balanced team, and their balance will definitely need to be on show against the Blues, who are coming now with a bit of momentum. Really, I thought it was a resilient win over GWS last week. How they are able to get on top of that midfield for pretty much the whole game and just beat them through their forward half stars like 𝐼𝐻𝐿 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼. The tools really got to work. It was a really good quality win. So now they are playing with confidence, and they have every chance here to knock off the Cats, especially with no Tom Stewart. The midfield game did start off ordinary early on this season, but now the last few weeks they're starting to get on top of their usual strength of stoppage and clearance and contested ball. 𝐓𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿 was probably the best player of the round last week off the back of 39 touches, and Walsh back in there too. His work rate and ability to just win the footy, dish it off to a teammate is definitely on show as well. So it's a game I could really see go either way. I like Geelong's class in their forward half. I think it's a good opportunity to really pick away the Blues with their forward half game with not much rebound, with no Sidor, no McGovern. And without Tom Stewart, I still feel like defensively they will set up nicely behind the footy, but it is a big out though. So with this game, could go either way. I'm going to be going with Carlton here. I've just loved how they won last week. They're now starting to add many strings to their bow on different ways on how to win. They could beat sides off their very good turnover game kicked off this year, unlike last year, but also their midfield. They can really get on top of that and generate a lot of scores from stoppages and from clearances. So the Blues at the G, I think they can knock off the Cats here and give Geelong their first loss of the season. Carlton to win, and they'll win this one by an absolute classic of 10 points. Then the Saturday night game, we have the Dockers hosting the Bulldogs at Optus Stadium. Fremantle, very disappointing last week against West Coast. Their issues of a lack of ability to put on points is on display. They just struggled to do anything post-clearance. They were able to get it out, but then they were just sweltered under West Coast midfield and just could not defend those entries. Harley Reid had the game of his life. Jake Waterman, Luke Ryan was absolutely struggling on him too. So I am going to be sensing a bounce back though from the Dockers. They are still a very well drilled side. When the Dockers have always been under the pump of their inability to score, they can come out and put out a big score. So could it be this week against the Bulldogs where, geez, they're hard to get a gauge on. They're always up and down. They could play some awesome football like they did against that Kilda, and then they'll just fall on their face and just get hammered in transition. Their midfield dominance did look to be back though. Jack Macrae had his best game so far this season last week. Bontempelli was able to show some damage forward, and they are also going to get back in some really important ins. With 𝐓𝐴𝐿𝐼𝐴𝐿𝐼 and also 𝘼𝐼𝐿𝐼𝐿𝐼 back from concussion, so that adds a bit of grunt into their midfield. As always with tipping, you don't want to look at past results, or last week's results I should say, too much. Fremantle just had a really off night, but so far this season, how they've been able to extract the ball out of the middle through their midfield work has been very good to watch, and defensively they've been very good so far this season. So against a high quality Bulldogs midfield, this is a great opportunity for Fremantle with their good clearance game so far this season to try and get on top of the coalface. But the Bulldogs usually play well in Perth, and they've been able to knock off the Dockers a few times here as of late, and they were able to get a big win over them last year. So with just how they're going at the moment, they're just killing me with tipping at the moment, the Doggies, but I'll back them in. 𝘼𝐼𝐿𝐼 and 𝘼𝐻𝐴𝐺𝐵 back into the side. Their forward half work was very impressive last week. It was against a pretty lackluster Saints side, so how much do you take out of that? I just think, though, the Doggies will get on top of this game and beat Fremantle with ball movement, which have been actually quite good as of late, the Bulldogs. So Doggies will knock off the Dockers here in Perth and win this one by 13 points. Sunday games now. First one up, we've got the Gold Coast Suns hosting the West Coast Eagles at Heritage Bank Stadium. Gold Coast interstate, they've been very disappointing, currently sitting at a 3-3 record. All those 3 losses have been from interstate, and all their 3 wins have been at home. It's just been a contrast of difference with how they've played at home. They've looked like a top 4 quality team with their midfield work and just how they play as a collective unit. But then away from home, that just all goes out the window. But they are a very young team. They've had 5 debutants this season, a lot of plays, and they've played under 50 games. They just got outdone by a more experienced and classy side of Sydney. So not too much shame in that. But it's a good opportunity to now get back into the winner's circle against the West Coast Eagles, who you can't treat lightly at the moment. Off the back of now 2 wins in a row, alongside a great first half against Sydney. What I've really enjoyed about the Eagles is their midfield work has heavily improved. 𝐿𝐼𝐿𝐼 Yeo in there and Tim Curley, the workhorse, and Harley Reid has felt like he's been able to change that club almost with a bit of hope. His confidence, he's just growing game by game, and it's infectious in my opinion. It has really now improved all the plays in that side. Jake Waterman is also off the back of 2 brilliant games. Ryan Marrick's ability to go inside 50 and go by foot has been awesome too. So there is a lot to like from West Coast, but it's just a matter of, how long will this purple patch last for? Is it going to be sustainable? They are still a bit of a young team. But even though Gold Coast have been so inconsistent, and maybe this could be a week where West Coast could pinch them, just think the Suns back at home, it's just a massive advantage in their favour. When they've been able to play at home, their midfield game has been very impressive to watch. And Anderson and Rowell and 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼 Miller, I felt like they had collectively down games last week, and their foot skills were pretty ordinary too coming out of their back half. They just gifted Sydney a lot of goals, so they were competitive in that first half against the Swans. Just accuracy really did hurt them. So because it's at home, I do expect the Gold Coast Suns to get a hold of West Coast here. They've been able to get the number on the Eagles the last couple of results, and I expect their midfield to get back to work and really show some much better footy. So Suns here will get the win over the Eagles, but I'm interested to see how West Coast do go this game. I think it's a massive test for them, but Gold Coast back at home, I expect their midfielders to lift. So the Suns to win this one by 21 points. And the final game of the round, we have the Hawks hosting the Swans at the MCG. Now, to the neutral eye, this might be another one of these just boring sort of graveyard shift sort of games, but I think this could be a big opportunity for the Hawks to try and shock a team like the Swans here, especially with the ins they do have. Will Day's expected to play now his first game of the season, the best and fairest from last year, and also I've heard Mitch Lewis could be back into the fold for this game too. Off the back of that win against North Melbourne, they'll now hopefully play with a bit more confidence, and we all know how the Swans can be sometimes at the GWS games, a bit lacklustre, a bit complacent. Lost to the Tigers, and even I was a bit sceptical before that game, thinking, I don't know if this will be an easy walk in the park. Sydney, though, very impressive against the Suns last week. Again, just their turnover game. It's really what signifies the Swans with strong performances. I think they scored like 70 or 90 points, I heard in the broadcast last week from turnover. They were just killing Gold Coast also in their front half too, and their intercepting game is heavily improved as well. So it's going to be a question on Hawthorn. Are they able to stop that Swans ball movement? Can they stop them between the arcs and not allow their turnover game to get going? What we've been able to see from Richmond and also West Coast, if you pressure them in their back half and not allow them to move the football easily, if you don't allow them to bring their turnover game, and if you block options in the corridor, they do struggle a bit. But the issues for the Hawks so far this season has been their inability to play 4 quarters. So I expect them to really turn up for this game. You know, Hawks never really like Sydney. This is a classic rivalry, and off the back of the win, confidence will be up and about. But I just think Sydney, with the classiness they do show on paper, they'll be too good for the Hawks here. So maybe this first half could be close, but Sydney's ball movement, I think, will do them in the end, and they'll run away with this one, the Swans, and win it by 25 points. So everyone, there are my tips for round 7, or Anzac round of the 2024 AFL season. Hoping for a bounce back this week. Was terrible last week, but yeah, I'm confident to get at least a couple more tips correct this week. But let me know how you are going to be tipping the matches this week down below in the comments. Love to hear your people's opinions. And that is it from me. Hopefully you did enjoy. And until next time, I will talk to you later. See you later, fellas.